Guys, I don't know if you knew this, but there's a little movie out right now called Top Gun Maverick. It's been out for about almost 2 weeks now. It had the world record 29% drop off for its second weekend of a movie that's made over 100 million in their opening weekend. Very happy to say that I contributed to that record breaking 29% because this past weekend, I went out and I caught Top Gun Maverick. Now, when it comes to Top Gun, the first film, I've seen it once and like one and a half times. I'm not a huge fan of it. I thought it was fine. I thought it was decent. I know a lot of people, like, I have an uncle that like that's his favorite movie. My dad loves it. Like, this is a highly regarded movie for a lot of people that grew up in the 80s with it. And for me, I just thought it was fine. I remember I said the aerial shots, the planes, they didn't impress me that much. I got a lot of flack when I first reviewed that. Like, it was one of my early videos on the channel. But I went out and I caught the sequel. I heard amazing things about it. It was super hyped up. And I will say, I think it was a little bit too hyped up, but it's still a really good movie. So let's get into it with Top Gun Maverick. First of all, yeah, the aerial shots in this movie are gorgeous. I mean, the fact that Tom Cruise actually put cameras in the cockpits with him and the rest of the actors, it really, you feel the speed, you feel the intensity, you feel the stakes throughout this movie because Maverick is being brought back to Top Gun to teach this new crew of pilots. They are going on a mission that Maverick is leading. And throughout the entire movie, it really sets up the intensity, it really sets up the stakes and just the risk that these pilots are going on fulfilling this mission. It makes the movie really exciting, really thrilling, really enticing. I was on the edge of my seat for a couple shots of this movie. A lot of that has to do with the fact that these guys are really in the air. You can feel it. They're flying these things around. You feel the speed. You see the intensity. It is remarkable filmmaking, and it's really easy to take it for granted because even when I was sitting in the theater and watching it, I kind of started to go like, oh wow, this is really cool. But like to really think about what they were doing, how they were capturing these shots, these planes in the air was phenomenal. But the thing that impressed me the most about Top Gun Maverick is the emotional heart that it really has to it. Because if you've seen the original Top Gun, spoilers if you haven't, in the original Top Gun, Tom Cruise loses his co-pilot Goose. And in this movie, we pick up with Tom Cruise, we pick up with Maverick. It's nearly 40 years later, but the death of Goose is still hanging over his head. And you really feel that throughout the entire runtime of the movie. Tom Cruise gives a really great performance as Maverick. And I actually really cared about the character of Maverick this time around. In the original Top Gun movie, I didn't really have any feelings for Maverick, but I got really emotionally attached to Tom Cruise in this movie because you feel it. He is so paranoid. He is so panicked of losing someone else. When he's leading these pilots on their mission, his number one goal is to make sure they all come back alive. And that's all because of the grief and loss that he is still hanging on to from his old co-pilot. And it was just a really beautiful character journey, a character story that I got really enwrapped in with Tom Cruise having to let go and learning to get over this grief. And I thought it was just a really beautiful story. And it helps a lot with Miles Teller's character in this movie. I won't say who he plays. You can probably figure it out if you've seen the original Top Gun. But the dynamic between Tom Cruise and Miles Teller's characters really, or Miles Teller's character really worked for me. I thought it was great. I thought they had great chemistry and they were the emotional heartbeat of the movie. I also really loved the whole new cast that came in here. I thought they all did a great job. It wasn't just the Maverick show. They really highlighted this new cast, this new set of pilots at Top Gun that Maverick is leading. I thought they all did a great job, and I really got invested in each and every single one of them, which I was not expecting when I went into the movie. Now, when it comes to some weak parts of the movie, I will say that the romance that they had in this movie, maybe it's just been too long since I've seen Top Gun. I don't really remember who this romantic person was if they were in the original Top Gun. I mean, if you've seen the original Top Gun, this movie is going to hit you a lot because I could tell there were a lot of references to the original film. Even the way that this movie starts off, it feels like the original movie because they literally started off as the original movie. They have the title card telling you what Top Gun is, and then they've got all the shots of the aircrafts on the whatever you call it, aircraft carrier as the music Danger Zone is playing. So this movie, one thing I will say about this movie is this movie I felt was a successful 1980s movie brought into the 2020s. And I don't mean as in like the IP or the franchise. I mean this movie felt like it was made near the tail end of the 80s, maybe early 90s at the most, but it did not feel like the traditional filmmaking that you get nowadays. I felt like I was transported back to the 80s watching an 80s film. Just the way it's put together, the editing, the acting. There's so much show and not tell. They just through the performances by the actors, through the camera work, through the editing choices, there were moments in this movie where I welled up just by what was put on screen, and I thought it was beautifully well done. So, guys, I mean, the hype I think is a little bit overhyped, but this is a really good movie. Whether you like the original Top Gun, if you love the original Top Gun, definitely see this movie. If you're like me and you thought, Top Gun, it's okay, still check this movie out. It's worth the watch. It's a solid recommend for me on this one, guys. So, what did you guys think of Top Gun Maverick if you had a chance to see it? Comment down below, let me know. I'd love to hear all your thoughts and opinions. And with that, guys, let's move on to your comments and questions.